Senator Ted Cruz dropping out of the race tonight. Here with reaction, former 2016 Republican presidential candidate Governor Mike Huckabee is with us. You know what Donald Trump said there, and I've been up close and personal with a lot of candidates. It really is tough. You go all in, you spend over a year of your life, and you don't get exactly where you want to be in the end. It's brutal. It's tough. What do you think?
Tell me about it. You know, people don't understand that. I think sometimes, Sean, it's harder to get out of the race than it is to get in. Getting in, you kind of ramp up. Getting out is usually something you have to do very abruptly. And it is so painful. You feel like you've let down your family, your friends, people who have sacrificed financially and given their time. It's a very, very painful thing to walk up on that stage and say, we're done.
A month ago, I think Ted Cruz had a mathematical chance, a realistic chance of stopping Donald Trump. I mean, that's how close it was for a while. I don't think he has anything to be ashamed of. I think he ran a very strong campaign. It was clearly, I viewed Trump and Cruz as both outsiders, insurgents in different ways. And the country clearly did not want an establishment guy. And it came down to those two. So he has a lot to be proud of. How does this work itself out, especially Cruz supporters that are disappointed tonight?
Well, sure they're disappointed. Of course they are. They're hurt. But those wounds will need to start healing, and then they need to ask themselves, would they rather have Hillary? Look, I believe Donald Trump will beat Hillary Clinton. And I think he's the one guy that was left on the field that has the best chance to do it. Sean, let me put it this way. Hillary Clinton is like the British Army in the Revolutionary War. She's very predictable. She's going to march shoulder to shoulder with redcoats, with the drums beating in an open field. We're going to know exactly what she's going to do because she'll run a very conventional, very predictable campaign. Donald Trump is like Swamp Fox. He'll hit her from the tree. She'll never know what happens. It'll constantly keep her off her game, and that's not something she handles well.
Are you really that confident?
I think this is a great night for Republicans.
Let me ask this.
Yes, I'm confident.
Why?
Yeah, I know Hillary better than most everybody out there running, and so I'm telling you, he's got the shot to do it.
Analyze for me. You had 17 really top-notch Republican governors and senators. I think the best field we've ever had in terms of its depth. How did he systematically defeat all of these people? What is it about Donald Trump's message that now will end up in a record number of GOP primary votes in the history of the GOP? Analyze that for me.
Well, part of what happened was that people had been focused on the purest of the conservatives. Well, they've been electing and nominating people that pretended that they were really purists. But here's what happened. People kept losing their job. They lost their pensions. They lost their health care. Their kids couldn't go to college. And when they looked at it, they said, if this is the purity of the conservative movement, then we don't need it. Let's do something very unconventional. Now, add that to the fact that Donald Trump really did get most of the helium in his balloon. So, yes, it floated higher, and most of us were struggling to get our messages out, and he was really captivating the audiences.
He made news every second of every day. Yeah,
every
he took
day.
a lot of oxygen out of the room.
Every news cycle.
Yeah.
Oh, totally, yeah. But he was so effective in being able to control the news cycle. And I'll tell you what, Donald Trump said at the podium what a lot of people said around the coffee shop with their buddies. And so when he would go to the podium and say it, people would say, yeah, that's what I believe, too. And yet he was saying it not with the normal kind of caution. Most of us as candidates would say it because we were kind of, I guess, maybe conditioned not to be too blunt. And, hey, this was the year that blunt really worked.
If he just did a few things, let's say he builds the wall. Let's say he listens to our intelligence officials, our top intelligence officials warning about ISIS infiltrating the refugee population, says, no way. Until we can vet them, they're not getting in the country. Let's say he does get rid of Obamacare, puts health care savings accounts in, and allows energy independence. We went over Hillary's comments in the last segment. If he just did some of those things and maybe spent less to balance the budget, wouldn't that create a lot of jobs by being energy independent? Wouldn't it create more opportunities by preventing illegal immigrants from coming into the country competing for jobs? Wouldn't those simple things have a big impact on the country?
It really would. And there's something else Donald Trump, I think, will do. He will bring a sense of optimism and hope. He will make Americans want to be winners again. You know, Americans intuitively, we're winners. That's what we do. We want to win. And with Obama, we always felt like we were having to apologize. Well, let me tell you something. The Russians are not going to be flying fighter jets 30 feet away from one of our Navy destroyers when Donald Trump's president. That's just not going to happen. And I think it's going to be, you know, a great opportunity for America to have a resurgence of its American spirit.
Do you agree with Newt Gingrich's analysis that he could single-handedly destroy the ideology of liberalism because he's so instinctively anti-liberal, as opposed to being a more traditional constitutional conservative like in the vein of Ted Cruz? In other words, does his business background and practical analysis applied to government, does that do a better job because it works, as opposed to what, in other words, and then tear down the walls of liberalism that have built up in the Obama years?
I think he has very much that opportunity to do that. And here's why. He is not the ideological kind of conservative. He's a very pragmatic kind of conservative. So when he talks about tax policy, it's not just the sense of saying, we're going to cut taxes because that's what I'm supposed to do to be a pure conservative. It's we're going to cut taxes because that's what creates jobs. That's what motivates people to go into business and expand and put more shelves out there, put more merchandise on the shelves and lower the prices, get people in there to buy. He understands that. And one thing I think people need to be comforted by, because, I mean, I hear people say, are you worried about Trump? I said, no. I'd be worried if we didn't have him. I mean, I thought I should have been the nominee, but once that didn't happen, you know what? I've told people all across this country, we'll be fine with Trump. He will be an excellent president, and he will beat Hillary Clinton. And
here's my question. Do you think the voters, did the voters select the most electable candidate, Governor, in your view?
Apparently so. He beat the rest of us, so I guess he's certainly the most electable. But yeah, I think it's fair to say that, Sean, because he has brought a lot of people into the party. And when I hear these never Trump people, I just wanted to say to them, listen, you guys ran a very narrow ideological stripe of the party. Donald Trump is bringing a lot of people to the party that were traditional Democrats and independents. So, you know, get over it. Accept the fact that for all the people you think
let me ask a straight-up question.
Think about the people he's brought.
Was Ted Cruz, in your view, less electable?
I think he would have had a much tougher time against Hillary. And, you know, I did not endorse in the primary. I'm all in for Trump because he's our nominee. Let's just go ahead and get him there because he needs to be. But one of the concerns with he was so predictable. He was just like Hillary. You knew exactly what he was going to say. I watched your interview with him the other night. You asked him questions. He just kept giving you the speech. And I thought, you know, that's what Hillary does. Sticks to the script, stays with the talking points. What people are so, I think, appreciative of Trump is that there's a sense in which he's really reacting viscerally to what's going on. And you get a sense that this is not just a guy reading the notes and following the script and carefully rehearsing everything.
Oh, I think we learned that throughout this campaign.
The nominee.
He doesn't rehearse. There's no doubt. All right.